If you have seen Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop, then you know about the banana in the tailpipe. Putting a banana in a tailpipe represents the idea that it will prevent somebody from following you. Well, we as a people have had a banana in our tailpipe for far too long. And now it's time to take it out. The following information comes, complement of the online Wikipedia. From Wikipedia, we read, Thomas Loraine McKinney was a United States official who served as Superintendent of Indian Affairs from 1824 to 1830. McKinney was born on March 21, 1785, in Hopewell, Maryland. He was the oldest of 5 boys and was raised and received his education in Chestertown, Maryland. McKinney was a Quaker, which influenced his approach to interactions with Native Americans. After the abolition of the U.S. Indian Trade Program in 1822, then Secretary of War John C. Calhoun created a position without legislation within the War Department entitled Superintendent of Indian Affairs. This later became part of the Bureau of Indian Affairs. McKinney was appointed to this position and held it from 1824 to 1830. McKinney was an advocate of the American Indian Civilization Program, becoming an avid promoter of the removal of Indian bands and tribes west of the Mississippi River. The Civilization Fund Act was an act passed by the United States Congress on March 3, 1819. The act encouraged activities of benevolent societies in providing education for Native Americans and authorized an annuity to stimulate the civilization process. Thomas L. McKinney lobbied Congress in support of the legislation. It was originally intended to support schools in Native villages and areas, such as those established by religious missions. These were operated by both Protestant and Catholic organizations. From 1891 through the early 20th century, the government used the Civilization Fund Act as authority to establish numerous Native American boarding schools. Hold up! The Civilization Fund Act, in my opinion, started the beginning of the end of the Aboriginal natives who were, according to James Adair, copper color or red clay-colored people. But the European men who married into any of the tribes at this point would have had children either as preteens or teenagers. At this time, the copper-colored natives would have been living very near to their aunties, uncles, cousins, nieces, and nephews of a lighter hue or a lighter complexion. Also during this time, the native was being described as savages. His story will have you believe that the Civilization Fund Act was for all of the Indians, but I intend to show that the evidence suggests that something else was going on here. I believe, based on the historical aftermath of this act. The act itself was designed to separate the copper or red clay color group of natives from the biracial group of Native Americans. Wikipedia continues. The benevolent societies were a combination of Christian missions and the federal government. Federal funds were allocated to schools designed to educate Native Americans in the English language and the ways of Anglo-Americans. The goal was to civilize Native Americans by teaching them reading and writing in the missionary schools. Later in the century, there was more emphasis on forcing them to give up Native religions, cultures, and languages. The passage of the act resulted in the development of a new class structure within Native American societies. While often traditional Native Americans opposed the schools, progressive ones, including senior leaders, accepted the schools, believing they were a way for their people to learn to negotiate with the increasing number of European Americans they encountered. Some of these young men with education and command of the English language rose to leadership positions within tribes, as in the American Southeast. According to historian William James, they were influenced to agree to treaties that ceded communal lands to the United States government. Within the tribal communities, some leaders believed that, given the increasing number of American settlers entering their territories, the tribes were going to be forced to cede their lands, and they were trying to gain the best deals for their people. Wait a minute. Over 200 years had passed since the arrival of the Pilgrims, and now the very same people that they called savages are now getting an opportunity to learn the English language so that they can have the ability to negotiate good prices for the lands that their fathers inherited from their full-blood wives of the many native tribes. While it was this very generation of Indians that had European fathers that entered the slave trade and after the Civil War had ended, these same educated Native American Indians denied their former slaves the opportunity to have these same basic tools. If James Adair was correct in his theory that the Aboriginal people showed evidence of being a Hebraic people, it would make sense to me that these biracial Native Americans would also show that they also contain the same evidence and that they must have been speaking in Hebrew. There are two groups, and the group that has European blood is the group that received citizenship status from their brothers in the U.S. As Thomas Jefferson said, "You will unite yourselves with us, join our great councils, and form one people with us, and we shall all be Americans. You will mix with us by marriage. Your blood will run in our veins, and will spread with us over this great island. One people with two names, Americans and Native Americans." Now, let's get the last little bit from Wikipedia. Within the tribal communities, some leaders believed that, given the increasing number of American settlers entering their territories, the tribes were going to be forced to cede their lands, and they were trying to gain the best deals for their people. That, for the purpose of guarding against the further decline and final extinction of the Indian tribes adjoining the frontier settlements of the United States, are for introducing among them the habits and arts of civilization. Annual sum/annuity is $10,000, and an account of the expenditure of the money and proceedings and execution of the foregoing provisions shall be laid annually before Congress. The Bureau of Indian Affairs was created in 1824 by the federal government and placed under the War Department. This part of the government had more facilities and personnel in the frontier areas where most Native Americans were living, and new responsibilities could be assigned to its staff. In some cases, the military supervised trading posts authorized by the government, which were another point of contact with Native American bands. The Bureau was created in order to administer the annuity given to the schools. Now let me give you my 2 cents. This educated bunch of Indians are now relying on their patrilineal heritage, which makes them citizens and family with the Americans. Perhaps it's because their matrilineal lineage no longer has any value. Because they are now in the act of selling off the land inherited by their mother and are actively selling it to their father's people. Thomas Jefferson knew that this would be the final outcome all along when he said, "Our settlements will gradually circumscribe and approach the Indians, and they will in time either incorporate with us as citizens of the United States or remove beyond the Mississippi." The former is certainly the termination of their history most happy for themselves. Okay, now here's the big question. We know what happened to the white men who married Native women. We also know who their children became, and what happened to them now. What happened to their mother? What happened to her brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews? Leave a comment letting me know what you think about this question. If you've been to this channel more than once, please subscribe, as it truly does help the channel. Leave a comment, for the Bang looks forward to reading them and replying to them. Also, don't forget to like and share this content with like-minded individuals such as yourself. There's plenty more where this came from. Until next time, this Bang content will end in 3, 2, 1.